Everyone. We've covered DDL commands, we've covered DML commands. We're going to be touching on DCL commands when it comes to the different SQL commands that you can execute against your database. So stay tuned. So DCL commands is actually the commands that actually helps to control how you persist data into the DB. So there are cases where you want to run, let's say you want to run multiple statements, query statements, and you want to make sure that everything actually gets executed successfully, or you just want to like make sure that if any one of them fails, you want to roll it back. So this is where we actually use your data control to control the flow and know when when to commit, to persist it into a DB, or when to actually roll back if there's gonna be an issue. So you can see here what DCL means. DCL stands for data control language. So this is actually very crucial in cases where you're writing, tons of multiple statements or commands, insertion, delete, update, and you just want to make sure that it doesn't mess up or it doesn't cause data corruption in your database. And also remember from the previous video, I actually mentioned that we're going to be looking at uh, acid, like just a brief overview on acid. So according to Wikipedia, as you can see here, this is actually right here. I've actually opened this down so that we can quickly go through some of this context. See here, acid stands for atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability. Okay, these are the set of properties of database transactions intended to guarantee data validity despite errors, power failures, and other mishaps. So this actually makes sure that the integrity of your data stays intact. So just bear that in mind. And in terms of DCL commands, the major one it actually really touches is the A, which is the atomicity. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit to where atomicity is so that we can actually really see what we're talking about. So basically, you see the transactions are often composed of multiple statements. So you can have a single transaction that actually has multiple statements. Multiple statements can be insert, update, delete, whatever it is, truncate, whatever statement you have there. But now atomicity guarantees that each transaction is treated as a single unit. So that means that transaction with all of those statements is treated as a single transaction, which either succeeds completely or fails completely. So when it succeeds completely, that's where commit comes into play. That means it has been permanently persisted into your database. And when it fails completely, that means it will roll back. So you see, if any of the statements constituting a transaction fails to complete, the entire transaction fails and the database is left unchanged. So let's go into the IDE, the SQL IDE. So they have already created a DCL commands database, and in there I have a table, DCL table, right? You can see right there, you can actually create a new query here. So already my database is set, so I don't really need to use the use command. I can actually just write query that will affect just this database. So in here, I can actually now say, so what I can say now is I can now start writing the command for this, commit and rollback. But before we do that, the first thing I want you to know is that for you to be able to write these commands, you need to be able to have you have to start a transaction, and within the transaction you can now write this command, and I'll show you that now. So the first thing you want to do is you want to begin a transaction. So you can either use tran or you can use transaction. So whatever you want to use, but I prefer to use the full because it's much more readable to me. And also the next thing I want to do is I want to commit at the end. So this is actually you beginning a transaction, and within this space write, this is where you write your statements. Okay, in there I can now write insert into DCL table, So that's the table I've already created here, which is this one. I want to insert into that table. Let's see what column the table has. So the table has first name. So in bracket, open bracket, first name, comma, middle name, last name, and then we have date created, and then I have values. Then in there I want to insert Femi, a middle name, to say oh, then same story. So yeah, then the date it was created was 2021-10-20. So basically this was the date it was created, and as you can see now we have, we have a command, right? Good. So the next thing I want to do is I want to run this. So if I run this, this would actually like run the query and commit it to the database. So if I select, you will see that now I have a record, right? I have one record in there. So now this is what I want to do. Instead of me now committing, right? I've inserted this. I want to insert the next one. Let's say I want to insert code with Femi. Let's say I want to insert that one now, but now I don't want to commit it. I want to roll it back. So I just want you to see how this thing plays in action, right? I've now said roll back, right? When I execute this, just pay attention. If I run this, you see that it's still just one record. Now I want to insert the next record, which is code with Femi, but this will not make it into the database because of this keyword. So when I run this, what is going to happen is it's going to tell me one row is affected, but ideally if you go back here, you won't find it here. And the reason being, the commit is what persists it into the database. That keyword commit, this keyword commit actually like persists it into the database. And then this rollback is a command that actually rolls back any statement that you might have actually executed against the database. So the transaction keeps track of all of the statements and then it runs it. But when it gets to the final point, if it's a rollback, it's going to roll back all the statement. It doesn't really matter. So this is just, how we use, commit and rollback. But there are cases where you want to make sure that everything passes, there is no issues and all that. And this is where we use something like this. So the first thing we do is we do begin try. So we use try catch, okay, and try, and then we say begin catch, and then we end catch. Okay, so we begin try, we end try, we begin catch, and then we end catch. So that's what we do. And in there, within your catch, within your try, let me just zoom this back a little bit, I think, and also let's close that so we can have more space to play with. But you can see here that now I have a try catch, right? So this tells me that it's fine. I'm gonna try to run all of this. So this is how you actually create like an atomic statements. So your transaction, you have a single transaction, but in there you begin a transaction and you either commit it at this point or you roll back at that point. So catch would be in a scenario where this actual block, if there's anything that fails, and then this is where it's gonna go into, right into this actual section where it's gonna like roll back. So let's say for instance now I'm gonna try to insert this now, like try to commit it, right? Let's go back here. You see there's still just one record. Now I want to insert this record, I want to commit it, but now I don't want to still commit it. I just want to like add another insert, but in this insert I will try not to include first name. Let's remove first name, because this is actually not going to run. The reason why it's not going to run is because your first name is required. It's not a null column. It doesn't accept nulls. It needs to be provided. Even okay, if I do, let's just even do this. Let's say no. It can be more clearer. sorry, comma. So you can see that we've actually specified that I'm inserting null into first name, but here it says I'm not going to accept null from you. So basically this actual one will fail. This is a very good query. This query would insert, but the problem is at this point it's going to fail. And what I'm expecting is that when I run this, it should not insert this because of this actually failed. So if you go back to that actual statement we have here, it's like the entire transaction fails, the database is left unchained. You can see there. So the transaction must be treated as a single unit. It must be a single unit. So just bear that in mind. So let's execute this. You see there that it says okay, first row, the first one was affected, this one wasn't affected. And if you go back to this guy and let's run this, you see that it didn't go through, right? And this is because we rolled back this actual issue. There was a problem here. So that's one of the things that you can actually just also like bear in mind whenever you're using rollback and commit. Commit is to actually persist. Like I said, rollback is to roll back any statement you've written if you want it to run as a single unit, because all of this must pass. So for all of this to pass, I'm just gonna like say YouTube. Let's change this to YouTube. Awesome viewers. And then in here, you see that when I execute this, this would actually give me what I need. It would definitely give me, it will insert these two, because these two actually are actually very good queries that I've written. And if I execute this now, that I want to expect I'm going to be seeing 3 records plus the existing one I have here, right? This one. So let's actually run this, execute. And as you can see, there were 2 rows affected. And if I go in here and I run this, you can see we have 3 records, right? So this is actually just how we use a case where you want to do do things as a single unit. You have a lot of statements, you worry that you might delete some data from a table, and when you delete that data in the next command something might go wrong. This is how you control it, where you make sure that you have a try. So within your try you have a begin transaction, and then you write your statements, and then you either commit it and then you end your try. If for any reason anything fails within the try block, it's gonna fall into the catch, and then you can safely roll back and you're safe. So I hope this actual video was able to show you how you can use DCL language. And yeah, just don't forget to put a comment in the chat, let me know what you guys think, and don't forget to like, don't subscribe, share with your friends, help people out there. I know there's a lot of people that will be willing to have this information, because I want to believe it's going to add value to them. And yeah, and I'll see you in my next video. And before I go, actually, in my next video we're going to be looking at, let's see, so we're going to be looking at yeah, this one, SQL conditions. So we've actually touched on DDL, we've touched on DML, we've touched on DCL. Now we're gonna go to SQL conditions. So this is where we're gonna be doing things with I've actually touched on using where clauses, but I just want to like dive deep into it a little bit more, where you can have case switch, and you can actually use that easily in your actual query. So I'll see you in my next video. Keep well.